Welcome to 5460, the Joe West Podcast. Featuring former Major League Baseball umpire Joe West. For 6 decades, no one has seen more baseball than Joe West. And now he shares those stories with you every week right here on the Podcast Heat Network.
Joe West is asking the Reds to leave the field. I guess maybe as a form of security.
Well, Joe West is not going back behind the catcher. So what is he doing? He wants to throw him out or what?
He's not going to back away from confrontation. It's just not in his makeup.
Which guy are we talking about backing away?
Well, come to think of it, it's both guys.
And they're warning the Atlanta dugout now. A helmet came flying out. Bobby Cox, I don't think threw the helmet. One of his players did, but Bobby's jawing back at Joe West. But somebody's been tossed, and here comes Cox. It was Bobby Cox who threw the helmet out there.
Off the umpire, and that's a foul ball. Joe West gets drilled, and he appears none the worse for it. He's a strong man.
Nice. Now Joe's going to give him some argument because Mark's saying, "Why do you do?" Joe, just get over there and umpire, will you? Yeah. Just get over there and umpire. No. That's all.
It's 5460, the Joe West Podcast. Here's Joe West and your host, Mike Claiborne.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to 5460, the Joe West Podcast. I'm Mike Claiborne, and Joe, we have another special guest. He may not be the athlete, but what he can do with music makes him a Hall of Famer in my book, and you know him as well as anybody. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to welcome to the podcast. He is Larry Gatlin. Larry, thank you so much, sir.
Hey, guys. Thank y'all. How you doing? Which way am I supposed to look? That way?
Look at your notes. You have notes, I'll hang on to them.
Yeah, but they're musical notes. So can y'all see me right there?
We got you. We even see your friend Elvis behind you.
You got Elvis? Oh,
yeah.
I got it. Elvis and I go way back, you know?
Yeah, I know. You wrote a song for him, didn't you?
I did. He recorded a couple of my songs. We go back even a little farther than you and I go back, Big Joe.
So how far do you guys go back?
Well, I'm not even sure the first time we met. I know the first time we really talked a lot was on that cruise, wasn't it, Joe?
Yes. Yeah, we had an Opry cruise. We had an Opry cruise that we were on, and we talked the whole night, talking about baseball, talking about music, talking about any little thing that happened. I mean, it was wonderful, and it was kind of cool because I think they had broken your guitar before you got to the ship.
Yeah, I remember that, and I went ashore in Aruba and bought another one downtown.
Yeah,
found a little old gut string guitar. I really did, but you know, I'm grateful to God for the musical ability that my brothers and I have. I really are, and for the ability. We're good athletes. We played all the sports. You know, I didn't run track, and I'm kind of like a water fountain. I run all day in the same place. You know that deal. But just went and hit some golf balls. But my grandfather played for Sinclair Oil Company in the oil league back in Texas.
Yeah.
So he taught me to play baseball, I was a catcher, taught me just not to wind up, take that thing from your ear and hit it, throw it like that, you know. So I tell people I'd rather watch a good AA baseball game as watch the Super Bowl. I love baseball. I've been married to the same woman 54 years. I finally got it over to her what infield fly rule. Now, Joe, it's going to take you to explain the double switch because she still can't get it. Why do you take two guys out and that guy? I said, baby, if you're watching an American League game, you don't even have to worry about it. So it's all right.
Yeah, because they have the DH.
Sure. You don't have to do the switch. Well, Joe, I'm wearing. I've lost myself on the screen. Can y'all still see me?
No, I think we lost you, but
no, we can't see you, but we can hear you.
Well, I don't know what I did here. Are you still there?
Yep.
Yes,
still here.
Okay. Well, I won't worry about me seeing you. I've seen your.
Well, you talk about growing up in Texas. You talk about growing up in Texas. You need to tell Mike the story about how you used to get this old football player to go buy your beer, and you would get the women.
Please tell me this story.
Well, we can't go into that. My friends at AA would just really. But I do have some. Can you see I got my Oak Ridge Boys cap on.
Yeah, well, you and Dwayne Allen been friends forever, haven't you?
Oh, we have been friends for so long. I was about 13, and Dwayne's about 4 years older than I am, so he was 17 or 18. He was singing the lead part for a group out of Texas called the Southern Airs. And I loved them. And we were one day at one of those all-day singing things on a Sunday after church. And, of course, I was singing lead with Steve and Rudy and our little sister, the Gatlin Quartet. And we literally went outside at the halftime, at the seventh inning stretch, I guess, and talked about things and talked about our dreams and what we really wanted to be back then. Our horizons were gospel music, and they were wonderful horizons. We had many heroes in that business that we both loved, Jake Hess and James Blackwood and those people. And never could it have dawned on us then. The good Lord had a little bit different plans. I won't say they were bigger plans. They were just different plans. So years later, of course, they're members of the Grand Ole Opry. We've worked hundreds of shows with them around the country. Still four of my very best friends. So I decided I'd wear my lucky turkey feather in my hat here, my cap. I guess it's still, yep, there it is. There's my turkey feather. And Joe, you'll love this. I don't know whether you can see this. Can you see that? My uniform?
I can't see on the screen.
Well,
explain it to me.
Well, I've got on. I met Skip LaSorda LaRussa met Skip LaSorda many years ago. But I met Tony here in Nashville at a dinner we had one night. The Nashville folks, former Attorney General Alberto Gonzales, and some wonderful people here. Golly, what is the guy who's running the thing? My mind, I know him as well as I know my own. But John, anyway, we're trying to get a baseball team here, a Major League Baseball team in Nashville, and I'm helping them with that. And I met Coach Tony LaRussa, Skip LaRussa, before he went back and took the Chicago job. And I was telling him about it. I said, Skip, do you remember the last time we saw each other? He said, no. Refresh my memory. I said, well, it was at Candlestick Park in October of 1989, and they had a little thing there called the World Series game. And so I wish you could, and I've now lost y'all's picture. I don't know what to do, but it's the jersey. He got me the top uniform top that he wore that night at the game, and he signed it for me and dated it and all that. So we have so many memories. Of course, we didn't get to sing it that night, but we came back 10 days later. And during that game, our friend Johnny Bench was doing the play-by-play on radio. So he was up in the booth, and I was down on the first baseline talking to Mike Lupica when everything started blowing up. But I had just waved to Johnny, and he gave me his traditional obscene gesture that we can't put on, a Zoom call. But then all heck broke loose, and didn't get to do the game that night, but came back, of course, 10 days later and got to watch the World Series game. So, and sing the national anthem. A great thrill for the Gatlin brothers.
Larry Gatlin is our guest. And Larry, one thing I know about Joe West, I think that music and baseball are tied for first, along with his wife. Maybe it's a three-way tie that he loves more than anything in the world.
The sound. Okay, I'm back. You said what now? I'm sorry.
I said there's three things that Joe West is tied for first in loving: baseball, music, and his wife. And I think you had a little bit to do with the music side because he loves talking music and the people that he knows
I
in the
love
business.
talking music. I tell you what, he better put his wife number one on that list. He's getting big time trouble.
You know, we go back to the performances you've had around the world and everything, and the song that a lot of people listen to and have no idea what you're talking about. I do, because I saw you at the Houston Rodeo, and you would sing that song about the Houston Rodeo, meaning the last stop on tour and we're home. And people don't realize that you would perform at the Houston Rodeo, at the biggest rodeo in America at the time, I think it was. And that was what the song was about, was performing at the rodeo and then getting home.
It was. Well, I talked to Janice. I always call her a couple hours before we go on, because I know I'm going to be kind of out of pocket for 2 or 3 hours during the show, and everything goes before and after. So when I signed off, told her I loved her, I said, well, we're in Houston for the rodeo. I said, baby, Houston means I'm one day closer to you.
And is that how you wrote the song right there?
That's how I wrote it, and we sang it that night. I taught it to the band back in the dressing room, in the locker room, the clubhouse, and sang it that night. It became a number one record later, and we usually open every show with "Houston means that I'm one day closer to you."
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's you're lucky. We were talking about how lucky we all are to have our fun with music and with baseball and whatever we do, and we're lucky to live in this country where that's our entertainment. I mean, and we don't have to worry about things basically because of our military. And I know your brother Rudy wrote a song about the military and thanking them for it, and I had written one too. Mine was a spoken word thing that we put out. But that's really neat that the three of you have been together for all these years. And what was it like when you first started? I know you said you wrote a song for Elvis and you felt like, I've really hit the big time now because I wrote a song for Elvis. But when did you feel like you had really made it the first time?
Well, we were raised singing gospel music, and that's like all we ever really knew. Of course, Roy Orbison was out from Odessa, and Elvis was hot then.
Hey, Larry. Larry, don't want to interrupt you here, but we need you to speak up just a little bit.
I need to what?
Speak up just a little bit. Okay, we can barely hear you.
We were raised singing gospel music out in West Texas, and we loved that. And every Sunday morning, we thought we'd made it because that was what we believed God wanted us to do. But as you go through your life, I mean, Joe, I don't know how much time you spent, or if you did, learning your way and learning the ropes and working your way up. Don't know if you started in AA. I don't know how that works with umpires, but we did the best we could every night. We do not phone it in. I mean, we go out there, people say, well, do you get tired? I said, well, I'm tired at 7:30, but at 7:58, when somebody says, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome, I'm not tired anymore. So that our father was a Marine. Daddy's a Marine in heaven, and so he taught us a work ethic and to be grateful for our blessings. And when I didn't get the job trying out for the Imperials with Elvis out in Vegas, but I met Dottie West, and she was working with the Jimmy Dean show, and I wrote a couple songs. He said, well, you look like a songwriter. I said, you look enough like Mickey Newberry, you got to be able to write a song. So that's true. So I went home to Houston. Janice, I had dropped out of law school, and Janice was a second grade teacher there in Pasadena. So I wrote 8 songs and sent them to Dottie, and she sent me a plane ticket. And very grateful. 5 years later, won a Grammy for Song of the Year for Broken Lady. And along the way, Elvis heard Help Me and Bitter They Are, Harder They Fall. He recorded both of those. So it's been an incredible run. It's not over. I'm on my way here in a couple of hours to do the Grand Ole Opry tonight with the brothers at the Opry House. And it's just been blessing after blessing. And I hope and pray we've handled it right. Sometimes we haven't because we're human beings. We make mistakes like everybody else. but we try to give it we do the very best we can every time, from the first pitch till the last out. And we're just grateful to be Americans. That game of baseball is, it's I think it's the only game in the world where the manager wears the same uniform as the players. Only team sport not played on a rectangular field. No time limit. I wish they'd put a little bit more of a time limit on those pitchers, my Lord. How many different places do they have that they can scratch in 20 seconds?
Well, you talked about Johnny Bench. You talked about Broken Lady. I'd really like to hear how you started writing the song Broken Lady.
Well, we were in Chicago. I was in Chicago. It's back before the brothers. They were still in school out at Texas Tech. We're the first generation of either side of our family to go to college. So it was important that they stayed in college. I was already out, came here, started writing songs. And I'd bring them back in and they'd overdub some stuff, sing their harmony parts. But they weren't really a big part of the first couple of albums, knowing all along that they would be once they got out of school. So I was in Chicago. We'd had 2 or 3 little records that maybe got top 40, top 50. And I was sitting in the back of a cab on the way to O'Hare Airport to catch a plane to Dallas to play golf with our mutual friend, the late, great Coach Darrell Royal. And I just said kind of out loud, because I don't have any dialogue, I said, Larry, what do you and your brothers do that would be unique? What can you do that will grab people right away? And I thought, well, guitar players are great, and harmonica players are great, and steel guitar players and fiddles and all that. I said, really, it's very few people who probably buy the record for the guitar intro. So I said, you need some harmony right up front. Sing something, big old harmony. And out of my mouth came, she's a broken lady waiting to be mended. Well, I wrote part of it on a barf bag in American Airlines seat 1A. Well, actually, I was probably in seat 24D back then. I wasn't flying first class yet. So I got to Dallas and wrote the verse and finished it up there in the living room of the Ewing family, the real Ewings of Dallas. Ewing, Buick, Finn Ewing, Finley Ewing, all those good folks who are still my great friends. And we released it. We recorded it and released it, and went to #1 and won a Grammy. So I'm greatly blessed of all men.
Well, you certainly are blessed. I mean, the pipes that God gave you to sing is really awesome, and we're proud of you for that. I can remember coming to Nashville for New Year's, wasn't it? A couple years ago.
Yeah.
And there was another umpire named Ted Barrett who said he knew a mutual friend of yours who was a piano player for a gospel group, and he wanted to meet you. So I called, and you said, well, why don't we go meet at John A's and we'll just have lunch together.
That's right.
So you came over, and of course, Teddy Barrett thought I had set the moon because now he's having lunch with Larry Gatlin, and we got to talking, and I knew you were friends with Johnny Bench, and I asked you if you knew the story about Johnny's first at bat against Bob Gibson. And then I told you the story, and you actually called Johnny right there sitting in front of me, and he told you the story.
I remember that. Well, I'll tell you what, I believe if I had to bat against Mr. Gibson, I mean, I'd love to have that opportunity. But I believe I'd have to step out of the batter's box and say, Mr. Gibson, you go ahead and throw one, and if I like it, I'll come in there and get it.
So, Joe, tell the story about Bob Gibson and Johnny Bench meeting for the first time.
Well, Larry was sitting across from me at the table, and I said, did Johnny ever tell you this story? And you said, I don't believe so. And I said, well, he came to the big leagues as a hotshot rookie, and he's throwing guys out from his knees, and he's supposed to be the next coming of Christ. And he's on the cover of Sports Illustrated. And sure enough, he opens in Cincinnati, which used to be the only game that day in Major League Baseball. And he gets 2 hits. And the next day is off in case of rain. And the next day he gets another hit. And the next day he gets 2 more hits. And they leave for the weekend to go to St. Louis. And who's the first guy he faces is Bob Gibson. And so Gibson throws a fastball to him, his first at bat. Now, to preface this story, I got to tell you that Johnny's dad was a good semi-pro baseball player, and he used to make Johnny watch the game of the week, which at the time was the only game on television. Today we have a game on every hour, but back then that was the only game all week, was the game of the week. And so, sure enough, his dad would walk by the TV set, and he'd say, I can hit this guy. And the inning would end, the next guy'd come in to pitch, and his dad would walk by, look over Johnny's shoulder and say, I can hit this guy. So Johnny grew up thinking his dad could hit anybody. So when he's facing Bob Gibson the first time, he said, the first pitch was on me so fast, I just flinched. I'd never seen anything like it. The second pitch, Gibson's not stupid. He threw it the same spot. So I flinched again. The third pitch, he threw me a slider on the outside corner, and strike three. He called strike three. I'm out. Said he headed back to the dugout, and he's laughing. And his manager was Fred Hutchinson, who was a mean, tough manager. And he said, what's so damn funny, Bench? He said, I don't think Dad can hit this guy. So I told Larry that story right there sitting at the table with Teddy Barrett. And so Larry calls Johnny Bench and asked him about his first at bat against Bob Gibson. And you told me that he said almost verbatim the exact story I just told you. And he said, that's exactly what the guy told me. And Johnny said, who told you that? And you said, well, Joe West, he's sitting right here. And,
I remember that.
And Johnny said, well, that son of a bitch was probably there.
Well, I love that. JB's been a friend of ours. I have an old song called If Practice Makes Perfect, Then I'm Leaving You Perfect This Time. And every time we're at one of those golf tournaments through the years, we'd get JB up there to sing If Practice Makes Perfect. Well, you can't practice enough to hit Bob Gibson, right? No. and if you get 2 hits off of him in a game, you better be real loose that third time you play, right?
Well, he swears he never threw at anybody, that they just leaned into it.
Oh, yeah.
He hit 112 guys in his career.
Bad about that leaning into Bob Gibson fastball. I'll tell you, the story I love, my old road manager, Ron Carpenter, his third cousin was Detroit. His name, I know it as well as I know my own. Again, I'm having trouble with names today. I just smoked a cigar and I'm racing a little bit too much. But who was the guy they were playing down in spring training? Nobody had ever seen, the Alvin Express, right? So got up there and, Mr. Ryan absolutely struck that, just 3 of them that he didn't see. And when he went back the on-deck circle, he passed it there, and Sherm Lawler, I think, was in the on-deck circle. And the guy said, don't go up there. Oh, Lord, I can't remember his name. That's terrible. I know him, like I say, as well as I know my own. But the baseball stories are great. We have been, able to watch so many of them. Just absolutely love the game. And I have a beautiful wife, and she loves to watch baseball. We'll come in at night not knowing what to watch, and if we can't find a good movie we just find some baseball game somewhere.
Well, that's neat, and the coolest thing about baseball is it's all American. It is
absolutely.
It is typically American, and I've said this before that you got to hit a round ball with a cylindrical bat. You got to hit it square, and then you got to hit it where they can't catch it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if you shoot 30% in basketball, you don't last long. You complete 30% of your passes in football, you ain't gonna last long, man. If you can hit it 3 out of 10, you wind up in the Hall of Fame. So that tells how hard it is.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. Larry, did you have a favorite player growing up?
Well, growing up, I was a Mickey Mantle fan. I was just too young to really get to watch Mr. DiMaggio play, but I always thought he was a very classy man. Ted Williams, I love Ted Williams, but when I was coming up, my grandpa, we could get is it WLS? Is that in Chicago? I mean, in St. Louis?
No, that's a KMOX in St. Louis.
KMOX, right. I'm sorry. The Cardinals were the farthest team west. That's before all of them went out to California. And he could pick up that station for the Cardinals, and we'd sit on the front porch and listen to it. And my old papa would manage the game. When he said, Larry, I think they're going to bring in the left-hander. About that, well, they're bringing in the left-hander from the bullpen. He knew it all. So Stan the Man Musial was a wonderful, classy man. Loved him too. But if you'd have told me that when I was a kid, that when I got to be an adult, that I would know Mickey Mantle personally and get to play baseball with him, get to play golf with him and pal around. So, that can't happen in a lot of places in the world. So when people try to tell me America's an awful place, I just go.
Well, you have a lot of friends in all kinds of sports. I know Donnie Anderson's a good friend of yours, and he went to Texas Tech with your brothers. And
sure did. 44.
He was, number 44. He says, I'm the Golden Palomino.
That's right.
He's the guy that replaced Paul Hornung. And I talked to him the other day. I think we're going to get him on as a guest. And so when he comes on, we'll fix your video so you can talk to him.
I would love that. I sure will. I don't know what button I punched, but good Lord.
But this is, the coolest thing about your job with your brothers is it's first of all, it's a family deal, and that has to make you feel good that you're all successful at it. And it's unique that you put together the deal with these record companies where they back you up. It's I can remember last time I saw you perform, I think it was you and Tanya Tucker and the Oak Ridge Boys. I think it was right outside of St. Louis, St. Charles, wasn't it? Something like that.
Probably so. We've worked St. Charles. I know we haven't seen Tanya in a while, but saw the Oaks last week. But it's a good, happy community. I mean, we've got some horses' rears in our business, just like they do in baseball. But 90% of the folks are good people. They take their work seriously. They know that those people out there save and spend their hard-earned money to come hear us do something we love to do anyway. So we feel greatly blessed.
Well, that's really neat. It's really neat that we had you on the show today. I'm tickled to death that we could get you on. And like I said, when we get Donnie on here, we'll get you back on with us.
I would love that. I appreciate the opportunity. I love you boys and love America and love baseball.
Hey, Larry, before you go, give me one good Joe West story.
Oh, my Lord. Good Joe West story.
You can't tell all you know.
Well, first, I appreciate Joe inviting me to come up there for his the game where he broke the record. But, Joe wanted to come on the Grand Ole Opry with us one time. He said, well, I'm a pretty good singer. Said, I believe I can sing that Houston song. I said, well, Joe, I'll tell you what I'll do. I got a deal for you. You let me umpire an inning in the next World Series you're supposed to work. I'll get you on the Grand Ole
Opry.
So much for that idea.
Yeah, really.
Well, that's kind of neat. And you know what? I'm going to get you in my next World Series.
Well, there's a deal. Well, if you can make it to Nashville tonight, I'll get you on the Grand Ole Opry. But that's your last chance.
Okay.
Larry Gatlin, we thank you so much for being part of 5460, the Joe West podcast. And we wish you nothing but the best of health and success to you and your family. And we'll keep listening as long as you keep singing.
God bless. Well, let me know. I'd love to come on anytime. Good luck to you, boys. God bless America. And God bless y'all.
Thank you, sir.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of 5460, the Joe West podcast. I'm Mike Claiborne, and our special guest today, well, he's got a pretty extensive record in the National Football League. He had an outstanding career at the University of Notre Dame. He's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He's been a Pro Bowler on multiple occasions, and also a Super Bowl champion. It's a pleasure to welcome Dave Casper to 5460. Dave, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, I'll make you regret it.
Well, how did you guys connect? First of all, how did you guys get to know each other?
Well, we have to cut out a few parts. I believe at the time, as I remember, we were. I was a Houston Oiler, and I was a friend. I mean, I'm a big baseball guy, and I'd go to the Astros, and I got friendly with the Astros. I was friendly with Joe Niekro, and Joe asked me somehow to do this with amateur chili contest in Flatonia, Texas, of all things. And then Joe's there, and so we met. And I said, "Here's a guy that I can't insult because he's more insulting than I am."
That's right. We met at a chili cook-off, and it was in Flatonia, Texas. I think the guy put it together was John Potter. And
yeah, John Potter. He was kind of a guy that put stuff together for the Indianapolis 500.
Yeah, the Indy racing. He handled a lot of stuff for the Indy racing stuff. And we met in Flatonia, Texas, and we were celebrity judges. And of course, Joe and Dave were smarter celebrity judges. They only tasted the chili, and I was eating half a bowl at a time. I was sick for about a week, so that was kind of wild. But you know, Dave's been a baseball fan for so long that when he got married, he actually took his wife to a baseball game. Now, you have to tell that story, David. So,
well, we got married the week after we graduated at Notre Dame, and we're driving. Our first 3 days were going to be in Chicago. I wasn't going to take a honeymoon because I got drafted, and I figured I was going to California anyway, so let's just relax. So anyway, I put the radio on, and here's the Cubs. I said, they're playing at home. So I found Addison Street and took east, and there was Wrigley Field, and went in, bought a couple of tickets, sat behind a post. And I think Jim Hickman hit a home run that day. I mean, I went in about the third inning. We left about the seventh inning, but caught a little baseball. And so I caught the Chicago Cubs playing the Mets maybe on our first day of our wedding. Our first full day.
And she's been with you ever since. She should be sainted, you know. Of course, you know.
Well, she found somebody that would never tell her what to do.
Well, Dave, go ahead, Joe.
Well, when he got traded over to the Oilers from the Raiders, he used to go to this place. I remember it because it was an upscale crawfish house. Now, no one's ever heard of an upscale crawfish house. But this place was called Willie G's, and it was on the Westheimer side of Houston. And Dave used to go in there to get the crawfish. And the owner of the place knew who he was, so he used to set him in the banquet room. And I'll let Dave finish that story because it's a cute story. So you can.
First of all, it's the Landry family, and they own Landry's, and there's a Willie G's, I think, in New Orleans, and I love that stuff. So I would just go in there, and I don't remember anything about a banquet room because there was a big room and there was a little bar. And now these boys were true Louisiana boys, you know. And this is as serious as a heart attack type folks. I remember one time a guy saw a rat, and he got up and he came up over he was a worker. It was Nathan Peck. And he threw something we had rats. We were taking tables out. We caught the rat in a table. Now, it was a nice place. Don't get me wrong. It just happened in Houston. You get rats, you know. It wasn't very far. It was, I went in there. Well, the interesting story there was, I mean, I ate every day for lunch. And I'd run up long tabs. They'd finally make me pay it, and they'd give me a discount. I'd almost break them. You know, I did like a bank. When you borrow too much money, you negotiate your bill down. Anyway, but now you'll figure this whole thing out. But there's a couple of guys that always had lunch there, and I was, you know, we were sitting at this bar eating the oysters or doing whatever eating, and they were, I don't know how old they were. They seemed to be older than me, but they kind of were hippie dudes with these long beards, and we just every day. So one day I'm down in Houston too. Now Joe's not there. I'm an amateur. I'm a judge of the amateur contest there, a celebrity judge. That's what it was. And these guys are there. And they look at me, what are you doing here? And I go, well, I'm a celebrity. He goes, well, who are you? Well, I'm David Casper, I played the Oilers. And I said, what are you doing here? We're celebrities. I said, who are you? I said, we're ZZ Top.
Oh,
I mean, I didn't, I was more of a country guy, and I knew a little bit about him. We sit there and eat every day. We didn't know anything. It was all this, and that place is still there. I mean, one way or another. Yeah. And it was just a simple place, a lot of fun, and I'll just leave it at that.
Speaking of a lot of fun, let's talk about your career a little bit, playing in Oakland, playing with the Raiders for all those years, and then you move on to Houston. It sounded like, and we hear the stories, that might have been as fun of a time a guy could have playing football as you could ever have, because you played with a bunch of free spirits at that time, and maybe it even started with your coaches.
Well, you're not going to get much out of me. Like I told Joe, I'll tell stories about Joe because he'd pop into my life every now and then. He'd call me up, tell me, what's the matter? You get your ass out of bed, you're lazy slob. Well, there was a guy that wanted to write a book. He was a sports writer there. And everybody wants me to get in the Raider books, but I'm not in the Raider books. And because I believe that nobody got the Raiders. Everybody thought we were crazy guys. Every team I've ever been on is a bunch of crazy guys. You're 25 years old. You're making more money than even in those days, more money than a doctor, lawyer, accountant. And you're not you're in good shape, and you got a great job. I mean, it's ripe for having too much fun. And when that Commander Cody and Lost Plate of Airman, they put me in jail having too much fun. Remember that? I used to hang out with Commander Cody out in the California days. That was a lot of fun. So anyway, the story. All these guys were. I think the Raiders are a very professional football team. It's just that we didn't try to make us look like we weren't a bunch of kids. Every other team has their PR guy. Oh yeah, he's a great guy. He's blah blah. And the Raiders just didn't do that stuff, so we seemed crazy. But the rest, I remember playing for the Oilers with a coach that really didn't exactly understand coaching, I don't think. But so we're playing the Raiders, and he says, "Now if the Raiders do this, if they hit this guy, we're going to do this. We're going to." And I raised my little hand. I said, "Coach, what happens if they just play football?" I said, "They could just show up and play football." I said, "Why are you worried about somebody swinging at somebody?" I said, "They're probably just going to show up and play football." And so teams and the Raiders didn't mind that. But I mean, we had a lot of Hall of Fame guys. I mean, Art Shell was one of the greatest solid guys there ever was. Upshaw was great. I mean, our offensive line was standard. Our receiver, we played solid football. And just because the Raiders like to put the skull on their patch over their eye didn't mean that we were vastly misread by many teams. Let's put it that way. And Al Davis, of course, was a renegade. But I was about other teams. And every place you go, there's a bunch of crazy guys. It's a game that's nuts. I used to tell Joe that, Joe would throw his mother out of the stands. And, so we used to talk about that. I said, yeah, I remember this guy. And this was a story, Carl Mock, who was a great guy. He was a center, but Carl could never control himself. And there was one time, without getting a long story about what a bad call this was, and the ref even knew it. Carl was calling him every name you ever could. And the referee was actually, all he was trying to do was calm Carl down because he thought Carl was going to have a heart attack. I mean, they knew that. Joe says, I had thrown him out. I said, Joe, you would have thrown every single guy in the game out, because in football, you don't really think much about should I say this or should I don't. I mean, most of the refs just walk away and let the guy calm down. And this one guy, the ref was actually trying to say, Carl, we got to relax. Carl, it's going to be okay. I mean, so, I mean, it's a different thing. Like I said, I don't know I don't really know if they would keep you in the league if you threw everybody out of the game.
They find something else for him to do. They'd let the league go on. They just find something else for Joe to do.
They'd have to change some rules.
Yeah, but those guys have a flag they can throw, and we didn't ever have a flag, so we couldn't give you an unsportsmanlike conduct.
Well, they were afraid to give you flags because you'd run out of them. I mean, you're probably the only one that would get a frayed flag from pulling out of your pocket so often.
Dave Casper's our guest, and Dave, you love giving it to Joe. I'm getting a kick out of this because a lot of people who come on, they kind of bow down to him, but you pouring it on to him pretty good here.
I haven't said anything bad about him.
Not yet. Not yet. Hey,
the only way to make yourself look bad is to argue with somebody telling you're bad. You know, the things you argue with mean more to you than things you don't care about. So,
never. Well, you've got to tell some more stories about, when we went to, speaking of not knowing first names or knowing just first names and not last names. I remember when I called you and you were still working for Northwestern Mutual out of Chicago. And I asked you if you wanted to go to the playoff game between the Tampa Bay team and the White Sox. And you said yes. And so we had one of the season ticket holders from Tampa Bay had flown up with her hairdresser. Her name was Lisa Metcalf. And you've seen these barricades around town where it says Bob's Barricades. Well, Bob don't own that. Lisa got him in the divorce.
Ouch.
So Lisa wanted to come see the Tampa Bay team play the White Sox. And so she asked me for tickets. So I got her and her hairdresser tickets. And Dave's going to come pick me up to go to the game. And I said, clean out your car. We got to take these two women to the game. And he said, okay, all right. So he picks me up in front of the Peninsula Hotel, the nicest hotel in Chicago. And I'm in the backseat cleaning out McDonald's wrappers. And so then we pull up to the Westin Hotel because she had friends with the Astros that got her reservations at the Westin. And we pick them up. And I said, Lisa, Aaron, this is Dave. Dave, this is Lisa and Aaron. So we go to the park. Nothing said, no last name, no, nothing about her owning the Barricade Company, nothing about him playing football. It's just Dave and Lisa and Aaron. So we get to the park. We park in left field at the players' lot, and we're walking in the tunnel down behind left field. And who walks by me but Peter Gammons? Goes right to Dave. And who walks by me but Harold Reynolds? Goes right to Dave. And Lisa looks at her hairdresser and says, why do they want to talk to Joe's driver? She didn't know till about the fourth or fifth inning, all the people coming down to talk to Dave, that he was a football player. So,
there was not that many, but there was a couple. I tried to stay out of the limelight a little bit.
Yeah, so he's been my driver. He's been my chili cook-off judge. We've known each other since the early 80s. So, and then he called me one time. I think it was the World Series between the Tigers and the Giants. And I had left him tickets for the first two games in San Francisco. And he said, I need 2 tickets in Detroit. Okay, when are you getting in? He said, I'm not going. I said, well, who you want me to leave tickets for? He said, Emmylou Harris. Now, Dave and his wife have done charity work with Emmylou's, it's to find pets homes and stuff like that. Isn't it, David?
Yeah, what is it? It's, oh God, it's a name. But anyway, I've known Emmylou for years because when I ran into her the first time I ever met Willie Nelson. That's a long, long story. But I was at I don't remember any names, but something about, what are the things where you grow grapes? What's that word?
Vineyard?
The vineyard place where it's up on the hills up in off of the Silicon Valley area.
Napa Valley?
Anyway, there's a thing up there. They have these concerts, and I went up there, and Emmylou Harris was doing it. I brought 3 or 4 friends because I've just known her for so long. Call up Maple, her guy that runs everything, and so anyway, afterwards we were just talking briefly, and I knew that she didn't give a dang about football, but she loves baseball, absolutely loves it. And so I'm just sitting there, and I think I knew you were doing it. This had nothing to do with going any to other series or anything like that. This was just. I said, well, I want to see this. So that's when I called up Joe. I says, I knew Joe would know Emmylou Harris. I mean, she's the queen of any country music singing there is. So anyway, you should continue this story, Joe, because, I mean, I ended up seeing her a little bit later in Chicago when she came in with my daughter. And she says, boy, thank you very much. She goes, this is great with Joe. He does this. He comes here. And he says, I love this stuff. So, I mean, it just ends up, I knew she loved baseball. Everybody loves baseball. And then she got sick. She got tickets with her brother. She always brings her brother.
Yeah, Walter. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a great thing. So, and then you tell the story about you. She came to see you, and you're breaking your record. And I got pictures of it.
Well, you did too. You were there for that game, and it was between the White Sox and the Cardinals when I set the record for most games. And you guys are sitting up in a box somewhere, weren't you? Were you up there with?
Yeah, I was up there with Emmylou and her brother and my wife, Susan.
Yeah.
And then they were yakking away. I don't
Don't be picking on Susan now. She should be saying it, having to put up with you.
Yeah.
But Emmylou's been a friend for a long time, and it's because of you. So Emmylou can blame you for that. So.
Hey, Dave, you've had a great career, but everybody who knows anything about the game of football will remember the one play that you were involved in San Diego. And there's so many stories to that one story, but I think the one that I still get a kick out of is the look that the San Diego Chicken had on his face or in his costume after that play was over with. So can you walk us through that?
Well, I mean, I just was there. The ball was bouncing around. It came toward me. I'd run a post, and I picked it up or tried to pick it up, kicked it, and fell on it. I mean, if I would have done it right, just picked it up and run in, it wouldn't have been a play. God told me to fumble it, kick it, screw it up, almost blow the whole thing. And then I fall on it, and then everybody asks questions. But the greatest thing was meeting the chicken. So on the Joes, when he umpired the most games ever, this freaking chicken's down on the field hecking with him. And then we go down the field afterwards. I'm walking down the stair with this chicken. I say, this guy's old. I mean, he was moving slow. And I said, how? Anyway, so he's down there later on. It's the chicken. It's the chicken that I fumbled. It's the same chicken guy that I fumbled the ball in the San Diego game in 77 or 78 or whatever the heck it was. And I told him, I'm the guy that did it, and you're the chicken guy. I should have asked him to fall around and roll like he did. He probably would have broken his bones now. But I got to meet the chicken, that actual chicken guy, 40 years later, 45 or almost 50 years later.
Well, you had it on your phone too. You had the video on your telephone.
I had the picture on there.
Yeah. He in fact, I talked to him yesterday, and I said that I was going to be speaking with you today. So he sends his best. He said, "Best of cluck." So,
well, I can play football. I'm faster than people think I am, and I kind of know what to do. But if I hadn't had those plays, I mean, I had a pretty good career, but I didn't have. You got to have plays like that. So I had two plays that people I had two plays from the top 30 plays of NFL. Just because there were two stupid plays that goes to the post and the holy roller. So if it wasn't for that, I'd still probably be doing all this stuff. But I wouldn't have been. I don't think I'd been in the Hall of Fame without those plays.
That's not true. And here's the funny part: when you had the holy roller game, and you actually told the chicken this, because he told me this. He said, Dave said, everybody remembers me for falling on the ball. He said, but I had 100 yards receiving that game, and nobody wrote that down.
Actually, it's true. I had that game. I don't know. I think it was that game. I had 2 or 3 unbelievable catches. One, they were trying to come to the linebacker, went down out on the left side and then up the sidelines. The snake let it out of bounds down the field, and I caught it over my left shoulder. I was running down the left sideline, and leaning out of bounds and kept 2 feet in bounds and caught it. It was a pretty good catch. And the other one, they actually started out trying to cover with the linebacker. Then they tried 2 linebackers. And then they had a 2 linebacker in and out with a safety and a triangle on me. And I ran by the safety, believe it or not. And Snake throws the ball. And you could find these videos. I actually followed one time. And the ball is going straight over my head. And I literally catch it about 2 feet off the ground, leaning forward with like 2 fingers from each hand. And I hit the ground. And that got us down to about the 15-yard line. Then I ran another pass that short a touchdown. And all I remembered about is sitting in the end zone, bopping around trying to pick up a ball and kicking it. I really had some of the. If somebody would go back and get that video and watch a couple of those catches, they actually were pretty athletic compared to what far was what I can do. I mean, we got guys like these Kellen Winslows that make athletic stuff they make it average and happen all the time. Man, I gotta work hard to make an athletic play.
Dave, when you look at the game today, you were a big man for a tight end in that era, 6'4", 240, but you could run, and you really turned that position into more of a receiver position like we see now with a lot of tight ends, because in your era, a lot of guys were just assigned to be an extra blocker. But you turned that position into something that's different, but we see a lot more of today.
Well, I think Snake did all that because he threw the ball at me. I kind of knew how to read what they were going to do. I knew the coverage, and you just run an open spot. I was a blocking tight end. That's how I got there, and that's how I'll always be remembered. I worked every day when other people did stupid things like calisthenics. I did my sit-ups and push-ups. And I went over and I had them build a one-man sled before they had one-man sleds. And I worked on I rolled over my left foot. Imagine lifting weights like a bench press where all the weights on the left side, you're trying to lift it with your right hand. You understand how everything would just tip and go to hell? Well, people block with the wrong feet in the wrong positions all the time. And I worked every single day. And I'm actually fairly quick, one of those quick guys. And I always got my feet in order, and I could block, and I don't care. I don't miss many people, and they don't get off me too well. And we always used to, my first year when they played me, they finally put me in the field. I caught 53 passes. We only threw the ball 270 times the whole year. Wow. we were a running team. Yeah, I caught some passes because we had Cliff Branch and Fred Blitnikoff there. They had to throw me some, but I was a running blocking tight end. And yeah, I also got down. I could have played at 255, but I went down to 240 during the season because you couldn't grab back then, and you had to be quick. You had to hit a guy with the right footwork, just like a baseball guy. These little guys can hit the ball a long way if they got the mechanics. And the same thing as the blocking. If you don't have mechanics, you're not going to ring that bell on the blocking sleds, and you're not going to shock a guy enough to get around him and mess with him so he can't make a play. And I worked on that all day long. Every single day of my life, I worked on the footwork. And just like a golfer would work on his technique, just like a baseball guy's work on technique. It isn't just being big and mean. It isn't being tough. It's technique and it's skills. Getting off the line, going down the field, running certain routes, making routes certain ways. Then you can take a guy who's a 4.65 and make him play more like a 4.55, just by having technique. So, but don't confuse me. I caught some passes because I had Ken Stabler there, but we were a running team, and we on 3rd and 3, instead of throwing the ball to me for 5 yards, they ran the ball over my ass for 3 yards. And, you're kind of like, if you're a really, really good blocker, you're gonna not catch as many passes because you're gonna run the ball, which is great.
Yeah, but even your pattern that goes to the post, you ran by the safeties. You were very fast for a tight end back then, and you can.
I thought I was this great receiver. I know the guy I ran by, and it turns out he was a rookie and he was out of position. Actually, the guy, when I left the line, the guy caught me under the throat, and the guy was actually where I was supposed to run the route. He was in my way. So I just started running toward another place, and he started running over there, and I cut underneath him, and I caught the ball. The thing is nobody watches it, but if you watch the video, when Rooster said, look for goals to the post. And because it was a pattern that I'd never caught the pass on. I was just running down the middle all the time, clean it out for Cliff. So he'd run it in. Well, Cliff didn't run it in because he said, look for goals to the post. And so the guy who was supposed to be covering Cliff was leaking over to the post area. And then Snake actually threw the ball. And I realized this later on because Snake won't brag about anything. He went to his grave without telling anybody the really good stuff he did. So he threw the ball. The guy who was covering me, he was behind me by now. And there was a guy on the right, down the right sideline that was covering Fred, and he was coming off. And there's a guy in the middle who was coming off Cliff. And I was breaking toward that guy, and he throws the ball away from all the three of those guys, just hoping I'd pick it up. And when I looked up, I said, ooh, the ball's over there. So, and I did, that's one thing. I made a quick adjustment and I found the ball really quickly, and it came down because it was about 10 yards away from where I was supposed to think I was looking for it. But Snake knew that there was a guy in the actual post area that was screwing this whole thing up. So he threw it totally different place, but I was the only guy that could get it, so I got it. So yeah, that play, if it wasn't for that play and Snake making that adjustment, like I said, I'd be talked to well about one of the better blocking tight ends, but now I'm because of that play.
Hey, do you keep up with the game at all today?
No. I have no idea who's playing. I don't know anything about it. I hate to say it, but I mean, I'm a big Notre Dame fan, but I don't watch those games. I go to bed. They stress me.
You have to tell the story to Mike about the first time you played with Archie Manning, because I know you played all those years with Kenny, but and when you and Archie got to the Oilers, you told me a story one day about how he used to run out of the pocket because he had to run for his life when he played with New Orleans. And so I'll let you tell the story about how he changed direction about 3 times and he finally found you. So I'll let you tell that story.
I don't know. I don't remember that story.
Well,
5 stories in one. I mean, he was a heck of a guy, and we got along. We got the problem with the poor Archie and I when he first got there and we started playing. One thing I remember, because he played so long, and by this time, and we weren't exactly overcoached in Houston. We ran pretty simple. It wasn't that our coach. We had an offensive coordinator, Jim Schaffner, was a great coach, but they'd hired a guy who was a special teams coach to coach the receivers. That's all he'd ever done. And there's a little bit more to running a route than just, I called it connect the dot. We run a connect the dot offense. You go connect this dot and turn right. I mean, there's more to running routes. So that was with, so Archie came in, finally, and then we go out and run some crossing routes. I remember one time I was running across the field and Archie tells me, I said, I think I'm open. I was running this crossing route and I'm not even into the route yet. I said, I think I'm open. And I just turned around and Archie was waiting for me to turn around and he hit me and it was a touchdown. And he did it 2 or 3 times where you're just running around, you're going, okay, I know he's going to see this stuff, and you just turn around, they throw you the ball. So some of that stuff happens because between Archie and I, by the time I was there, we had 20 years between us. And in fact, a lot of times when Jeff Schaffner got there, you were old enough now to know everything. When he'd run a new play for a team, you'd actually say, now, Schaff, you think I'm going to go out over here? And you wouldn't follow the play anymore. You would actually say, now, how do you think this is going to work out? What's your thought process here? Do you think this guy's going to go under me or over me? And that was the nice thing. We were playing with veteran guys that kind of just know all that stuff. They make it a little bit easier on you. And the greatest thing about Archie was when we both got traded at the same time up to Minneapolis for my final productive year. And anyway, about 2/3 way, it was after the 3rd game, and Archie didn't get to play much. He had a goiter, he had that thing in his throat. They had so he couldn't play that year. But so we're leaving, and we had our first snowstorm of the year, and I went down and got to pick some stuff up and I was coming back to the locker rooms or whatever. And there's this car coming out of the locker rooms up the street going about 5 miles an hour. And look at this. It looked like Archie, and he looked like an 80-year-old lady leaning over, because I'm coming from New Orleans. He'd never seen snow. Never. And his car was going like 5 miles an hour. And we're just watching him trying to figure out how to get this thing down the street, So that's still my greatest memory of Arch, was sitting there trying to fight it. But he was a heck of a guy. He's a heck of a quarterback. If on a couple of better teams, he would have been in the Hall of Fame.
So what keeps you busy these days, Dave?
I do not stay busy intentionally. No, I get up in the morning, and I'm a Catholic boy, so I go to church. And then after church, I go down and get a Diet Coke, and I sit down and read my cell phone. And then most 2-3 other days a week, today I was doing my Meals on Wheels, and I fill in a lot. So I'd be a great delivery boy. I do that. And I occasionally will fish, but I really am pretty unproductive.
I see that's not true. You told me, first time you told me about Meals on Wheels, you said these people really appreciate it, and they barely know me by my name, and they don't ask me.
They don't know my name.
I know, and then you said, and they would never ask me to do a podcast or anything like that. Yeah. So I like all these people.
Well, they're very. They have less than most people, and they're more. And you'd be surprised. Most of them are more happy with less. Well, they're very thankful. They're nice to you. You meet nicer. You've got to meet. So that's kind of nice when somebody's nice to you you're not even doing anything. And I've been out there in a lot of places where, especially today in society, people are always mad at somebody. Jeez. I mean, they've got this cause because you did this at this time, or you didn't say this right, or your great-grandfather must have done something bad. It's just how many different ways can we choose not to like each other? And actually, I actually am an indiscriminate partier. I do not. All you have to do is want to laugh and have a good time, and I'm there. Nobody can do that anymore. You can't go out in public and drink a beer. They'll take a picture of you, and then you'll have somebody on some website. What a shading is, what they call it, or they got terminology now for how to piss people off.
Well, you said
they have whole techniques, and they have this Twitter thing. All it is when we were kids, I used to see people writing on washroom walls. We just built technology into writing on bathroom walls. Mary. For a good time, call Mary. Now you just put it on the email. You put it on Twitter. And all it is it's technology for writing on a bathroom wall.
I'm going to have to remember that one. I think that's a pretty good analogy you have there.
Yeah.
Well, Dave Casper, it's been a blast to have a chance to visit with you and hear some of your great stories. As we wind things up, you've had an incredible career and you've had an incredible life. Was there a coach or a player that really had an impact on you that you still carry in your mind today?
Well, I think tons of them. But my first great coach was Parsegian, and he taught you systems. Process every day. Here's your drills. And he was really an organized, just super organized guy, and had a good staff. I didn't learn some stuff there when I went to the Raiders with Madden. Well, he was more of a teacher coach, so his assistants knew a lot more about footwork and all this stuff. I learned, oh my God, once I realized what the footwork is. So Ollie Spencer helped out a lot. And then, of course, Tom Flory is my receiver coach. And then I copied Fred Blitnikoff. I turned everything he did from outside. I flipped it around and did it the reverse way. And so all those coaches were great guys. It was fun watching Bud Grant when I played, but I don't know him. I coached him for a while. And then it's just a pleasure every time you see Art Shell. I mean, when you are a blocking tight end and you stand up next to Art Shell, and that it's very likely that these guys over you are not going to make a tackle. I like that. And I used to have calls and stuff. If I said a town that was nearby, it means I was going to stay in and punch the guy in the ribs. But if I used something like like New York, that means I'm gone. Don't count on me for help. But I would take so many cheap shots at so many defensive ends. I mean, they weren't cheap, but I had guys that would search me down. when we had interceptions. They wanted to kill me just for elbow them in the ribs. When they came up with the head slap, which was legal, we came under with a shot in the ribs. And, you look at them and say, guys, it's football. And I don't go after your knees. I don't hurt you, but I will cut you. But I won't cut you in a way it's going to hurt you. But I'm going to irritate the heck out of you. And, I hope you get a penalty when you beat the hell out of me. So, all those guys, all those guys were great players. And Snake, I think you don't realize how much he didn't say about how many great things he did. He was so, he avoided taking any credit for anything. And so he was fun that way. And, the guys I got drafted with, I was a second round. Van Eegen was a third round, and Morris Bradshaw was a fourth round. And we spent 8 or 9 years together. I still hang out with Morris, and we took some when I did the Superstars. So my wife was too far along with the baby, and so I called up. I said, "Don't we get to bring a coach?" They said, "Yeah," because these guys would bring a spouse or a coach with them. I said, "Well, Morris is a coach." So we went to the Bahamas, going out there, saying, wake me up on time in the morning for me to try and do the boat race. Those were the good times. It wasn't even in the games. It was your buddies.
Well, yeah, and you roomed with Ray Guy, didn't you?
Well, he was one of the 3 guys. Yeah, that when I tore his room up because he would never go to bed. We're in training camp. We watch the news. You go to bed. You want to get your 8 hours in, and he was. Anyway, yeah, we had to tear his room up one time.
Well, as we get out of here, Joe, you want to send us home?
Well, I can't thank you enough for being on here, David, and I know that I have to say this because if you weren't married to Susan, I'd probably never talk to you. But it was really good having you on here today. And thanks for beating me up a little bit to show that I'm really human.
Well, you're partially human.
Okay.
That's Dave Casper. Go ahead, Dave.
Qualify us. You do qualify to be in the genre, what is it, the human. You have a couple DNA things that are human in you. All right, take care, guys.
Okay. He's Dave Casper. That's Joe West. I'm Mike Claiborne. We thank you for tuning in for another edition of 5460, the Joe West Podcast.
My baby took me to the ballpark to see a baseball game. Lord, it had to be at least 99 in the shade. I was stealing a glance at some tight short pants just as I turned my head. My baby grabbed me by the arm and this is what she said. If you cheat on me, you'll be out at home. If I catch you playing the field, you're gonna be long gone. You better play it safe and don't do me wrong. 'Cause if you cheat on me, you'll be out at home.
You've been listening to 5460, the Joe West Podcast, here on the Podcast Heat Network. Make sure to subscribe and don't miss an episode each and every Monday. We'll talk to you next week.
She's checking all the signs while I'm enjoying 2 of the great American pastimes. It's fouling up my nerve watching all these curves, remembering what she said to me. And if I get caught looking, it's gonna be strike 3. If you cheat on me, you'll be out at home. If I catch you playing the field, you're gonna be long gone. You better play it safe and don't do me wrong. 'Cause if you cheat on me, well, you'll be out at home. If you cheat on me, you'll be out at home. If I catch you playing the field, you're gonna be long gone. You better play it safe and don't do me wrong. 'Cause if you cheat on me, well, you'll be out at home. If you cheat on me, you'll be out at home.